that's what I love. I love the fact that we can do things like that. We can cross barriers, that's what this, in my opinion, I want to grow the game. It's given me everything in my life, honestly, the game of baseball has. So why not do something that we can, because there's, you know how it is, guys. You can get on social media right now and get really depressed.
Yeah.
Like you can get depressed, you can go down some really, really negative rabbit holes, and we all do. And we're not going to say talk about names or people. We're gonna keep it all positive. um, so I kind of had this idea of, let's just do something with called growing the game, where it's just a very open, informal Zoom call where we can all share some perspectives. We got some ex big leaguers on here. We got college coaches. We got players that played at high levels, pro guys. So we have a lot of cool perspectives on here right now.
And I tell my players all the time, I go, you have to go on campus so that you can get a feeling to see if it's for you or if it's not. Trust me, there's going to be a lot of places that look great on camera, to, videos, pictures, whatever. But when you get there, maybe you won't get the same feeling. So you really gotta go to the campus to get that effect, or it might change your mind about a certain school. You think that might be your school, and all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, I didn't get this feeling when I went and stepped foot on Seton Hall or whatever, or Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get that feeling. So, that's my thing, that feeling. I'm very big on vibes, and, them being around the coaches and stuff like that. When they took me around, like I said, I'm coming here. Wait a minute, but you haven't even seen the rest of the campus. I go, no, I'm getting a very good vibe. I'm good.
More now than ever, the ability to learn how to communicate is so important. In terms of teaching our players how to communicate is one level or layer. Teaching the parents how to communicate, I don't know about you coaches, but I'll get direct tweets sent to me, and they'll spell my name wrong. They won't ask me a question about the university, but they'll give me some shallow content about what they do as a baseball player, and that's just about it, right? It's just almost like this superficial text, just trying to, it's mass volume, let me send it out. And really it goes back to relationships and developing and building those relationships over time. Dan, said that you were going to George Mason, right? Because of the coach there?
Yeah, at the time, yep.
Why? What was it?
It was the one-on-one interaction when he came up and talked to me in the summer at a game, a Legion baseball game, guys, a Legion baseball game back way back when. And he came up to me and said, "Hey, I love what I see, and you would fit right in as potentially a weekend guy for us on the mound if you came here." And I had a lot. I mean, I was a high draft pick, so I had a lot of. But and George Mason was a great school, but not like an elite school. They were a very good academic school. It was in a great area for me. My parents could have got there quick, 5 hours away from my hometown. So a lot of things mattered, but it really mattered because I had a connection with the recruiting coordinator. I mean, it was like a really strong connection, and that mattered to me. So I picked that over. I had a Clemson offer. I had a Florida State offer. I had a Coastal Carolina offer. And I love the coaches there too. Matt Schilling was there and so I had met some really good people in that process, but I just had it was just a feeling that it was like, it didn't matter the name of the school. I was going for the people there. And I think a lot of people aren't able, like, I feel bad for the players because I don't think they're able to have that feeling anymore. It's more about, okay, my buddy committed last week. I'm starting to feel pressure. And I don't want kids to feel that way. I want kids to make great decisions, because let's be honest, we all know this. I never thought I got drafted. I thought I'd be playing baseball still. Well, I had a shoulder injury 3 years into my pro career, and I had to battle tooth and nail to somehow play another 8 years after that. But injuries happen. You might go to college, step foot on campus, and the next day you don't play baseball again because of something that happened. So there has to be so much more than just the school or the level. And I think it's the people. You have to go for the people. You have to go for the experience and the people, because you're going to be there.
Well, I know this is kind of affecting the player and the college coaches more than it would someone in my profession. With PBR Mississippi, we're fortunate to have 15 to 16 junior colleges in the state. So every time we put on an event, there's colleges there for kids. But I was interested in hearing some of the stuff about the relationships that were built. I didn't really have a recruitment process. I was fortunate to get to the big leagues, but I went to the only offer I had was the JUCO offer to Mississippi Delta Community College. From there, I went to Northeast Louisiana, which is now ULM, and then I transferred back to Delta State. So I played at every level and ended up, making it. But the recruitment process, I didn't really have one. But I see, I feel kind of sad for the 2021s. I think more than anybody is because in Mississippi, some of these 2021s will probably and potentially have never played a high school baseball game in front of a Division I coach, or maybe even Division. I think Division II's come out now, but and that's the one of the things that I like about the showcase scene is players are on the field with a lot of the coaches, and there's relationships being created, and so after time, they're not as nervous. And I've got a 14-year-old son that's fixing to deal with this, I'm sure. And I know that he'll probably be able to handle it a little bit better than some because he's already around coaches. But I just thinking of that 2021 who's never been able to start a relationship. And now he's may potentially never be seen by a Division I coach. And I know they're probably going to end up where they should be. But there are a few that I know of here in Mississippi that there's really – they're probably advanced past the I just feel like their skill set's probably ready for Division I. A guy that could potentially go Division I and maybe contribute as a freshman, but because of the COVID situation, there's not room for them. And now the JUCOs are filling up, so there's probably a lot of pressure for them right there. And the fact that they've not really created the relationships that kids have been able to in the past, it's sad a little bit. I'm looking at it from a parent side, and I'm hoping we move into a better situation before my son does, get to that point. But I couldn't imagine him being, 16, 17 years old right now and never being able to experience what many before and hopefully many after will be able to go through. I commend, these guys for the Zoom, doing the Zoom calls and trying to create the relationships that way. I'm in the middle, so I don't hear about all this stuff as much, but it's nice to know that there are schools that are, going the extra mile to really create those relationships, because I know it's important. You see kids the first showcase in front of, you guys, and it's not the typical player that you see that I see when I know they're loose and comfortable. And it's, I agree that becoming comfortable, like Dan, I know some guys went to George Mason, and I think Sean Camp is there now. Mike Colangelo is a buddy of mine that went there, and I'm a big believer in relationships.
I think I might be the oldest in the group. I don't know. I mean, I graduated in 1989. Back then, coaches came to your baseball game. They came to the high school baseball games. They came to practices. They were more, I had a bunch of scouts looking at me when I was a senior in high school. Now it's basically done through virtual games, so you really don't know who's even looking at you. So, I think that now the biggest element that I think that needs to be explained to the kids has to be going through the parents as well too, for them to have an idea. This is what to expect from here on out. This is what we have to teach and show these parents and educate these parents, and also educate the kids on what the true realities is of verbally committing, as well as if the coach is going to give you what the difference between committing and getting an offer, right towards the very end. So education and getting a good grasp as to how this whole recruiting process is going to go, that definitely starts with the parents need to be very well educated with that.
That's one thing that I've really enjoyed about this process is that I actually felt like I've had more communication with the recruits because it's forced us to get creative. It's not just a text here and there. It's, hey, let's get on a Zoom and let's talk about this stuff. Let's show you this. Let's do that. But the other thing too is, I've grown a lot. I've been college coach for 10 years now. The biggest compliment I've ever gotten was from a kid who committed to another school and another player that I was recruiting who ended up, not coming to Seton Hall, but ended up, just having a really good experience and saying, Coach, this is the hardest decision I've had to make. Do I have to tell you no? And I thought I did my job as a coach, because that meant that I had already started to establish the relationship. So like getting a commitment is like such an adrenaline rush. You're getting that sort of like, yes, we did it. It's an accomplishment, but it fades and it goes away. And yes, you love that player and you end up following that player through high school for a year or two. And once you get them on campus, it's like, finally, we got them. And it's a really big thing, but there's pressure attached to it. You have that kid's decision to come to Seton Hall is now kind of attached to our decision as the staff to evaluate a player. Mm-hmm. Whereas when a kid commits somewhere else and he has a sensation of regret that he's not committing to you, that's an actual like emotional attachment that I think is important. And I think that's something that I'm striving to do more. I'm striving to create that attachment where a kid's it's gotta hurt to tell me no. I don't want you to just be like, all right, coach, nah, no thanks. Like that's the worst. That makes me more upset than losing almost, because it's like I didn't even get in the door.
Do you guys think that the junior college door now is much bigger than it ever has been, or do you think that's just an easy perspective?
I think that the guys that I've talked to over the past couple of months about some kids, some of the 2021s that are looking to go play somewhere, the junior colleges are more open to take in players, at least the ones that I've talked to. And the problem that a couple of them have actually told me is that their roster sizes are increasing to points that it's almost unmanageable. So that's where, depending on what program it is, I don't know. It's gonna be scary for those kids that decide to go to some junior college, because they don't know if are they even gonna get a chance to play. There's one school in Illinois that they have a roster of 36 pitchers in their roster right now. Wow. I'm like, how are these kids gonna get reps? Some of these kids may not even see one inning coming up this year.
Triple headers, baby.
That is exactly. I'm like,
you got enough arms, roll them out, baby. Get those hitters some ABs.
Yeah, Johnny Holt's staff is basically going to be their motto. But yeah, that's what concerns me a little bit about, especially some of the bigger and more stronger junior colleges. I know some of we have one here in Fort Wayne that's a little bit on the, they're up and coming. The coach over there does a great job. He was a former NAIA World Series champion, so he knows what's going on. He knows how to treat their players, but he just started that program 2 years ago. So last year in itself, they only had like 16 players to play, and that's it. That's what they had for their beginning of the year until they got canceled out. But that's, up and coming schools are the ones that are going to benefit from it. The unknown junior college, I think are the ones that are going to benefit from getting good players.
Yeah, I'll give you my background real quick. I played 5 years of Legion baseball. For a kid my age, I don't think that's very common with how big travel baseball is and everything. But the area I grew up in, that's all we had. And And that's just what I did. I played for 5 years, freshman year, all the way to after my freshman year of college. Had a Division II offer coming out of high school and ended up going to a junior college just to keep the dream alive of hopefully playing Division I, and ended up at Liberty. And hearing you guys talk about like knowing when you get on campus that's where you want to go. I had that feeling with Liberty. I'd never heard of it before. Didn't even know it was a school. When they called me on the phone, went down and saw the campus and saw the facilities and met the coaches. And I was like, geez, like this is where I'm going to go. And I actually went down on the visit by myself as an unofficial. And when I was on my way home, I called my mom and just said, hey, like, I know where I'm going to go to school. And you'll understand why when I take you there. And that was the case. Ended up playing 2 years there and loved it. But, I had an interesting experience there where, in the recruiting process, you're kind of promised the world, and it ended up being almost the opposite of that, where I was there during a coaching transition. I played my junior year under one staff and my senior year under another staff. And the staff that ended up moving on, we had a huge falling out at the end of the year because what I thought was promised was taken away from me. I played my junior year, played 58 games in a row, and they told me I didn't have a spot my senior year to come back. So it was either get drafted or go to a Division II or Division III or NAIA. And that was really tough. I mean, that was one of the most heated moments of my life because I thought, I was going to have another opportunity to play another year at a school that I loved and a program I really liked. And, that's a horror story that, I've heard other ones. It doesn't mean it's going to happen to everybody. But that was just one thing that I kind of have a little bit of a soft spot for and that I would never do to a kid. It was tough to go through, but luckily things played out in my favor. The coaching staff moved on, and when the new one came in, I was allowed to come back and finish out my senior year, and everything worked out and loved every minute of it. But recruiting, I got to do some of it at the junior college level. And that's tough. We do it 1 year at a time because, those are just kind of the players we get. We recruit those seniors that are coming out of high school that maybe have been picked over or kind of left out. And, it's kind of tough because you got to have an eye for, is this kid going to develop? Does he have something that we can use down the road? Does he have a good frame? You guys know all this stuff. But I love the junior college level. I push the junior college level on anybody that, is in that situation. They're coming down to their senior year, and probably even more now with spots filling up at the 4-year level. It's a way to keep your dream alive and just keep on playing.
No matter, it's at the junior college, the D2 or the D1 level. I mean, I think now more than any time, it's a time where coaches, players, and, parents just have to be honest with each other, I guess. Like one of those things when I started coaching at Canisius when I was 24 years old at the time. And I was 2 years older than some of the seniors. So, like when I'm making phone calls to, these possible incoming kids, and, sometimes it's hard, to be honest, about playing time, about, what their role would be, or, anything like that. And I think now it's important for the coach to be honest with the player and the parent, but the player and the parent have to be honest with themselves. Like, is it a good fit? Dan, you may have gotten an offer from Clemson, but, George Mason was that better fit. Like, where am I going to play? Like, I played in the PSAC. I'll carry it to my grave that, the competition in that D2 conference competes at, a lot of D1 conferences. We brought in 2 D3 grad transfers this fall at Canisius. Like that time to be honest with yourself, where am I going to play? What's this best fit? I think that's the most important thing right now.
Max, you 25 now?
I'm 26 now.
Oh, 26.
Yeah.
You young buck.
Yeah.
Any
I'm
perspective from you, Coach? I'm interested to hear.
Yeah,
thoughts.
just listening to all of you guys. It's great to be on the call. It's refreshing to hear the perspectives and the points of view. I think that the honesty and transparency piece is critical for the parents, for the players. It's this idea of like, hey man, it's not maybe what you want to hear, but right now it's what you need to hear, and that might serve what they want to hear, but for many it might serve what they don't want to hear, but what they need to hear. But I think that circling back to making decisions, going to wherever you end up, you have to see beyond that first 4 months of being there. Like, can you have a career-ending injury and see yourself at that university for the next 4 years and be okay with that? I think that one of the things that we try to do with the young players, especially the recruits coming in, or they're not sure, we're like, hey man, we get a lot of guys that come back from different 4-year schools and transfer into our university. It's like, hey man, why didn't it work out? Like, what was it? Like, maybe they weren't ready. Maybe they weren't honest enough with themselves at the start. Similar to what you guys have all said, it's like we've all been on that parking lot looking for a car, and we're like, man, this is our budget, but man, that one over there is a little bit more expensive, and then all of a sudden our emotions start playing with us, and then we make that emotional decision, right? There's a lot of emotional, impulsive decisions, and sometimes you find out that the players are more adult acting than the actual parents. So I think that the emotions run high. Before I went to the college level, I was at a high school where Tom Brady and Lynn Swan and Barry Bonds went. It's a private Catholic school, 1,000 boys. So everybody in that community thinks they're going to be the next Bonds or Brady, right? And so the pressures that those kids are under before they even play a high school baseball game is massive. And many of those kids can't handle that. And it's like, at the end of the day, let's put them in front of guys that are older, that have been through it, that can mentor them and give them the real life experience. What was it like for you? Instead of listening to our coaching staff, like, we recruit you, we're going to do what we can to get you there. But I think it's really important for the players that have been through the program to match that up with, hey, what the recruiting pitch was, or what your philosophy is, or how you go about executing your recruiting process. Like Pat was talking about, developmental meetings, the tour. It's like, hey, is it for real? Like, the players are the best at being able to tell you straight up if it's real or not real. And so I think a lot of kids get burned because they think they're coming into something like Andrew was talking about. And it didn't completely align at one point for you, Andrew. I think that's what I heard, if I'm being accurate in what I listened to. And so we got you there. Now we got to keep you there, and we got to come through on our end as coaches and serve what our message has been to you all along. And I think, there's some great universities that do it really well, and there's some that do it okay, and there's some that do it really poor. And it's just a matter of what you value as teachers, coaches, educators, leaders, and mentors, and really being consistent with the messaging, because I think that the kids see right through us, right? And if they get on campus and they sniff you out and it's BS, then it's like, we have to look at ourselves. That's on us. And so I think we do player forums where basically we send the parents in there with our players, and we tell our players, like, hey man, talk about the social scene, talk about the academic demands, talk about what day in the life, talk about time management, talk about becoming responsible for yourself, talk about how to meal prep. I mean, it's, and then we look at it in just one lens of, we're just playing a game. No, you're not just playing a game. You're there to become a man by the time this thing all ends, and you're there to get an education. So sometimes we just look at it, the player and the parents just look at it through, it's just baseball. But if we truly are honest, how many true freshmen, go into a Division I experience? I played at the NAIA level, so I relate, man. I played at Bellevue University in Nebraska, and we were as good as anybody back in the day. And so it's like, you just want to have an opportunity to compete, right? So anyways, I'll get off my soapbox.
I think a lot of the reasons why players don't get better is because it's hard. it really is hard to get better. You have to train hard, you have to lift hard, you have to throw hard, you have to do a lot of things. Some of the reasons why coaches don't get better is because it's hard. It's because you have to adapt and you have to change your mindset, and you have to sit there and say, you know what I was doing before might not be the best thing for this athlete. And I have to look myself in the mirror and I have to say, I was maybe wrong, or my intentions were good, but that's a lot harder for a 41-year-old coach to do than a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
So I think that's the bigger issue, is that there are so many people out there that don't allow themselves that vulnerability to say, you know what, I think what we're doing might not have been the best thing for you. Like, let's switch it up. Let's try this. Let's see if we can adapt. Let's see if we can change things. Let's see if we can do something a little differently. It's really difficult, especially for men, to do that at an advanced age, and in a kind of sport that has some, cojones to it. I think it's something that it's extremely difficult for us to do. So that's I think the bigger issue when you talk about that aspect of that, the technology, the coaching, the things like that. It's
because
big issue.
You hit the nail on the head, because here's the reality. We've all been very successful at this game at some point. All of us, everyone here has been very good. And it was, most of us, it was decades ago, right? So it was a while ago. So it's hard sometimes. Even I find myself now, I'm like, why don't you just go out and play long toss all day and don't worry about some of these programs? But like, then I sit back and go, you know what, Dan, like some of these programs are helping these. I mean, they are helping kids. So like, how can I be negative towards a program just because I didn't do it? Now I'm trying to throw in a couple weeks, and I'm not doing a bunch of crazy programs because I don't have them. And my comfort, I'm comfortable doing things that I did, which is exactly explaining the point that I'm a 37-year-old that has a little bit of an ego. And so so it's hard for me to, but I know what you're saying, and it's true. Some of us have to check the ego at the door and say, the game is going a little, Louis, what about your perspective? you 20 some years in professional baseball, and you didn't have you had none of this technology, and you are living it now. You understand it. So I think that'd be a great perspective.
Okay, well, there's a lot of information, man. I wrote some notes down so I wouldn't forget nothing.
Louis
So
played
the
without
first
bat
thing,
gloves.
the first thing I want to touch on, we talk about, the old school and the new school stuff. If everybody knows me, I'm very old school, but I'm open to this new school stuff because I want to learn how I can get this kid better, maybe get him to another level, a level maybe I never got to. Why? Because when I was playing, the only thing I was looking at was still pictures and video. Mind you, people would ask me to sign a picture. They would ask for my autograph, and I would look at the still picture and stay staring at it to see where my hands were, see where my leg was at, see where this was at when I was hitting, or if I was fielding, if I was in the proper position, all that stuff. I was looking at that, and the fan would ask me, why, is everything okay? And I go, no, I'm just trying to learn and make sure I'm doing everything properly.
All these guys are so used to looking at numbers and information that it's easier for them to learn by looking at the data. So we had a guy who kept having topspin, rolling over to third or hitting humpback line drives. He couldn't figure it out. And I could do drills till he was blue in the face. I showed him Rapsodo one time, how the ball's coming off the bat. He's able to think about it and go, oh, okay. And that's how he makes his physical adjustment. Granted, that's just the one guy, but I think more and more guys are starting to get on that level where the best way for us to communicate with them is showing them, hey, this is what you're doing. Here's the numbers for it. And they can kind of make that adjustment themselves. Granted, it's not everybody. Some guys, I think you throw them in the cage and you go, do this 4 times and you'll feel the difference. And some of them just, it clicks. But some guys, if they see it, awesome.
Once I finished my career, I've been involved with reading a lot more, and I should have been reading when I was playing. And I try to tell my players that as well. And I just came across this article that us as males, more than 80% of us are visual learners. I know I'm one of them. So we talk about all this technology and everything like that. And I said, man, more than 80% of these kids are struggling because they can't see it. So if we show this to them, maybe they'll get better at it. I mean, I mentioned earlier that I looked at pictures, I looked at videos for whatever I had disposal for me. But now you have all this other stuff. And that's why when Nolan mentioned that about that hitter, him seeing it and he made the correction. So when I try to teach, a lot of the times, I try to use visuals. I try to use baseballs on the ground, in my hand, stuff like that. You know, you got to attack the ball like this, you know, stuff like that. Just different things like that, using a lot of visual stuff to help them out. Because I definitely thought about it and I feel like I'm a visual learner.
I think the technology is, it's number one, it's their world. Like it speaks to them, right? Like that's what they know more than it's hard for us because I'm older, and it's something I have to learn that's not comfortable, right? But the feedback it gives them, it's instant feedback. That's their world, right? Instant. They want it yesterday. It also, I think that for me, it was at first it was like, okay, these numbers are great, but the day, man, my guys got to compete. Like I need them to compete and not lose sight of competing. Okay, so turned it into complete competition. Like everything was against somebody and their numbers, and it's like, hey, man, we're gonna turn it into competition. You're gonna get your numbers and your data and your feedback, but we're gonna use it to compete along with help you develop. I watch some guys and they're just like, hey, I just want to know my numbers. Well, I want your numbers to translate to what it's going to actually be like in a game, in competition,
Right.
and when there's something on the line, because you need to execute. So I think that there's where it's like, for me, it's like, is it old school? Is it new school? I don't know what it is. It's today. And I've got to find a way to be a curious learner, because if I'm not, I'm going to be left behind.
The adversity that we're experiencing right now is going to thin out the herd, if you will. Kids need to realize that, you can invest in a travel team, you can invest in a glove, you can invest in this. Investing in your development is the number one thing that you need to be always concerned about. And I think that gets lost. There are kids that will be fired up about a tweet and I got this, I got that, I got my glove. But then, hey man, I got to wake up at 6 a.m. and go lift. I'm going to skip that. That's not going to work in this environment, because there are guys that are going to be crushing lifts at 6 a.m. and they're going to be beating you. So understanding that part of it, that there is adversity and that there are kids that are training like savages and there are kids that are just going to do whatever they can to get the opportunity that they want. There are people out there that are going to be working harder than you at every step of the way. And you can't just go through it and say, well, I didn't get a fair shake. Well, you had an opportunity to make gains over this shutdown. Kids found a way. Adversity makes the strongest people sometimes, but I think it thins the herd. The other thing is I think the onus needs to be on educating the players on how to communicate to the coach what they need. I am not the most technologically, sound guy. I know Rapsodo reports. I know TrackMan reports. I know what I need to know because I think it's important. I think it's important to the development of our players. So if a kid, if I'm talking to a player and he doesn't know what a Rapsodo report is or how to read it, then that's a little bit of a red flag. Right now, you need to be dialing in on that stuff. You need to be dialing in on video. You need to be dialing in on metrics. And unfortunately, we've been forced in that direction. You know who else needs to be dialing in on that? Your pitching coach, your travel ball coach. We talk about being positive, and I think the most negative source of content on Twitter is the discussion between like old school and new school coaches. Like, if you're not willing to accept that there are people out there that are wanting information and it's going to help them improve, and you have a choice. I can either help this player improve with that information, or I can choose to reject it and prevent that development. That's a significant impact in that player's life.
Pat, do you find that some of your pitchers don't want to see the analytics because they attach a little bit of their self-worth to it? And there's a little bit of that self-esteem.
Some kids look at high spin and they say, "Oh, I don't have high spin. Like I'm a failure. I'm not good enough."
Right?
It's like, no, that's not your strength, but it's not good or bad, and you have to explain that to them. Like you can, you know, you might be a guy that gets 40 ground balls in a game versus 15 strikeouts in a game. You're still getting outs. You're still successful. You're still a good contributor to the team.
And I think that brings me back to sort of like the old school of like when I was playing, it was my father. You want to play? Go take reps. If you don't do it right, you're not good enough. It was just, he coached me hard, right? I didn't know any different, but he also never told me why. Nobody ever explained why to me when I was playing. And now I think that the coaches do such a tremendous job of explaining the why to the what more now than ever.
The other thing too is giving that player ownership of their success and saying, "Hey man, this is why you're successful. And this is where you can be successful," and give them that power on the mound where now we talk about ultimate development. Like, I don't have to call pitches because you know your arsenal and you know when there's a lefty in the box, this is your strongest pitch. So what used to be anecdotal at times or not as specific now becomes a little bit more clear. And once you have clarity, that's when guys can elevate their performance. So if I'm a pitcher and I have high spin and, you know, coach is calling fastballs down in the zone, it's like, well, I've gotten 3 punch outs up in the zone. Why am I throwing fastballs down? There's a conflict there. But if we're on the same page and I know that this is where this kid's success is, and then that player knows it, he has more confidence where if I call a fastball up in the zone, it's like, okay, I'm going to go get it. Or, you know, I've got a really good sinker, so I'm going to get a ground ball, a double play. So I can allow that player to shake and say, I don't want the changeup now. I want a fastball. I'm going to get a ground ball, double play. So it's one of those things where it empowers the player. It gives them the ownership of their development, of their success, I think at times too, which is ultimately when you have better teams. You know, if the coaches are directing things, you know, the popular saying is like, good teams, coach-led teams can be good teams, but player-led teams can be championship teams. Well, what better way to give ownership to players than saying, hey man, you've got the ball, you know your stuff, go get it.
I think for me, one of the, like from the movie Moneyball, one of the sayings that Brad Pitt says, adapt or die when it comes to the analytic stuff. I personally don't think it's an adapt or die mentality we got to have. Is an adapt and blend, you know, because we have the choice to either adapt to it or we can use blend the old school and the new school, blend all that kind of stuff, because yeah, nobody has this game figured out. Nobody. And if a Rapsodo machine is going to give me a lot more knowledge. I mean, I can see what the ball's going to do, what brake's going to do, the spins and everything like that. But I can tell a kid that, yes, your spin is a little bit off, is more 11-5 than 10-4. I want to see more 12-6, blah, blah, blah. But if he has that data in front of him and he can actually see it, guess what? He's now, oh, so that means, coach, I have to get more on top of the pitch. I got to get more on the inside part of the ball to throw the changeup better. I can use my index finger to put pressure on the ball to make the two-seamer run a little bit more, because that's going to allow, and he's able to see that real-time information right there in his hands, then fantastic. That's what exactly, you know, we need to do for that particular pitcher or that particular player, because it's about blending all of this technological new tools that are out there right now.